Okay, moving right along, you guys should be on chapter 7. You should read back over notes, read the chapters back to back. Tyree and Lafayette in chapter 6 wrapped up Mom's funeral. We learned that Tyree was accepted into MIT and didn't go because he wanted to keep his family together. It was more important to him. Tyree moved into Mama's room and kind of took her place. Wanted to be there for his family. Again, as we continue to read, we're going to be looking at and thinking about Lafayette and Tyree. So far, how do you feel about the narrator, Lafayette? Do you think he seems like a nice guy? You don't understand him? You're frustrated by him? You'd wished he stood up to Charlie more? You feel sorry for him or other? I think he's handling things pretty well for where he's at in his life, but I'm an adult. You guys might think differently. All right, chapter 7. I'd fallen asleep on Tyree's shirt and woke up to the smell of chicken frying and Tyree singing me and Bobby McGee in the kitchen. So, chapter 6 was set in the past. And chapter 5 was set in the past. Chapter 7 is set in the present. If we remembered before the author started talking about the funeral, Tyree and Lafayette were sitting on the couch, talking and remembering. And so now we're back in the present with Tyree making that chicken that Lafayette had asked for. And it's very important that we recognize that the time frame has shifted. I could hear him singing and moving around, lifting the covers of pots and getting things out of the refrigerator. I rolled onto my back and thought about the dream I'd just had. Tyree and Aunt Cecile had agreed that I'd spend every summer down south with her, and when new Charlie came home, he'd spend summers there too. The first summer I went, Aunt Cecile had pointed me down a path that led to a stream chock full of rainbow trout. I had been dreaming about that stream, about trout jumping up onto the fishing pole Aunt Cecile had given me. In the dream, the fish wiggled and wiggled, their rainbow scales flickering in the sun. I pulled a fish off my line and let it dance its last dance against the bank, then put it in a pail half filled with water. I was carrying the fish back to Aunt Cecile, and she was going to fry it up. Then a shadow came over the path, and when I looked up, I saw new Charlie standing there, frowning at me. He knocked the pail out of my hand, and the fish lay on the ground between us, its eyes wide and glassy. When I opened my mouth to say something to him, no words came out, and me and new Charlie just stood there. That's when I woke up. I want to stop. That's something called a dream sequence. And the author, the narrator, has had a dream. I don't think much of the dream right now. I do know that dreams are almost always symbolic. They don't mean what they say that they mean. And we may come back to this dream and think about what it might mean. What does a fish symbolize? Because I'm not sure. That's when I woke up. It was dark out now and steady rain was pinging against the window. I wondered where new Charlie was, wondered if he'd gotten home yet. I closed my eyes and tried to remember more stuff about what it was like before he went to Rahway. Sometimes me and him would sit out on the stoop waiting for Mama to come home, and he'd tell me about girls who liked him and guys who thought they were bad. Sometimes me and him would get to laughing so hard about something we couldn't stop. I remember this one day we were laughing like that, and Aaron came up to the stoop and asked what we were laughing at. Me and Charlie just looked at each other and burst out laughing even harder. I don't think we even answered Aaron. We probably didn't even have an answer. And sometimes new Charlie walked down the block with his arm around my shoulder, bragging to everybody about how smart I was. Now I'm confused because this says New Charlie and he's being nice. And I think that might be, it's making me think it might be an error. I don't think the author meant New Charlie there. I think the author just meant Charlie. It might be a typo. Him and my big brother's going to be rocket scientists, he'd say. Better watch out or else I'll get them to send your butt to the moon. Mama, I whispered, make them send the old Charlie home. Tyree stuck his head in the door. Bright light from the hall came in with him. Yo, 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 he said. Time to get up and eat, sleepyhead. So we've gone from a memory to the present. What time is it? A little bit after 7. You feel like going to the movies tonight after we eat? I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and nodded. See what? Tyree shrugged. I don't know. Figured we'd go downtown to the quad and see what's playing. I don't want to see no art movie. You always want to take me to those boring old art movies. Half the time I don't even know what they're about. Tyree shook his head and smiled. You'll figure it out someday. I don't want to figure it out someday. I want to see a movie I can figure out why I'm watching it. Only reason you asking me because nobody else will go with you. Only reason I'm talking to you. The only reason I'm taking you to the quad is because I'm not going to spend $8.50 on some karate movie or action feature about some outer space somebody wanting to blow up the earth. I grinned. It could happen, you know. We don't really know about life on other planets. And we ain't going to find out about it tonight. Come on and wash up. I got food almost on the table. He disappeared out the door. I got up and went to the bathroom. Going to the art movies with Tyree wasn't really that bad. If we saw something that was way deep, he'd always figure out a way to break it down for me. Tyree had fried chicken and made mashed potatoes and corn with red peppers in it. He'd fixed me and him a plate and put 2 slices of bread on mine because I eat bread with everything. I sat down at the dining room table. We got any soda tea? Ginger ale, Tyree called from the kitchen. You want some? I frowned, not even knowing why I asked. It was the only kind of soda Tyree bought when he went shopping. If I had some extra money, I'd pick up a big bottle of orange or grape soda. I hadn't had any extra money in a while. Nah, just water, please. Tyree came out with 2 big glasses of ice water and sat down across from me. We ate for a while without saying anything. Tyree'd learned to cook from Mama and from reading cookbooks. There are always 2 or 3 cookbooks in the bathroom because he usually read them in there the way most people read the sports section or magazines. You say grace, he asked me. I closed my eyes. Thank you, O Lord, and Tyree for getting me something good to eat before I starved to death dreaming of fish. Amen. When I opened my eyes, Tyree was smiling. I smiled back. Now, this is the second time we've heard this fish thing. We're going to see it again, probably, I would guess. And it's something to think on. I don't think it's super important, but I think it's interesting. Which detail best indicates that Tyree's trying to be a good guardian? He watches art movies, he buys ginger ale, he reads cookbooks, or he takes Lafayette fishing. You really dreamed about fish? I nodded. Aunt Cecile would tell you to play a number, Tyree said. Fish is supposed to mean something. I remember her talking to somebody about it, saying she dreamed about fish one night and played whatever number it was, and 2 days later she hit for like $300. So played a number means playing the lottery. What number was it? Tyree shrugged. Even if I knew we wouldn't play. Figure if Aunt Cecile hit for 300, she must have lost about 600, as much as she plays and as little as she hits. Tyree picked up his chicken wing, took a bite, and chewed slowly. In the dream, New Charlie came along and knocked the bucket of fish out of my hand, I said. You figure they got a number for brothers knocking fish out of your hand? Tyree didn't say anything for a minute. He was holding the chicken wing in his hand and had a faraway look about him. I was sorry I'd even mentioned it. It was only a stupid dream anyway. You know I don't like you calling him that, Loff. He calls me worse, and that's who he is anyway. That ain't the same brother that left this house that night. None of us are. But we didn't get evil. I stirred my potatoes around on my plate, not wanting to look at him. You got quiet, Tyree said. You don't hardly leave the house. I hang with Smitty and PJ sometimes and sit on the stoop. You used to play, laugh. I was a little kid then. Tyree shook his head. You used to laugh all the time and make jokes and play freeze tag and handball. You used to always have something new to tell me or show me. You used to go to Poncho's and come back with potato chips and soda and go across the street and talk to people. Poncho don't want us in there after Charlie robbed him. Tyree looked at me. You know that's not true. I stared at my plate. After new Charlie got home, we all went around the corner to Poncho's, and Charlie apologized. Poncho said he didn't hold any bad feelings because Charlie had done his time. I loved your mother, Poncho said. You're welcome here, all of you. I don't like candy and stuff anymore anyway, I said. Yes, you do, Laugh. Don't lie. And what about the other stuff? What about how you used to come home and talk about everything you did and saw? I was just a little kid. Little kids do that stuff. Nah, Tyree said, that's not why. I didn't say anything. Tyree thought he knew it all, but he didn't. He didn't know anything. You changed too. I know. I stuck my head into my job, raising you and Charlie, I don't know, he went somewhere inside himself. You see it, the way he sits there staring off sometimes. I nodded, remembering all the times I woke to find new Charlie sitting on the edge of his bed with his hands hanging down between his knees, just staring out the window. What's he thinking about anyway when he stares like that? Charlie shook his head. Maybe Rahway, maybe Mama, maybe me and you. He's not thinking about me, at least not nothing I'd want to get inside his head and hear. He say where he was going? Tyree asked. Uh-uh. He say what time he'd be back either, did he? Nah. You rather I put you in your room and share... You rather I put you in my room and share your room with Charlie? I looked up at Tyree, trying to see if he was mad or serious. His face was calm, like he just wanted everything to be over with already. Nah, it ain't so bad no more. He don't speak to me is all. How come you don't just ignore him, like maybe he's not even there? Because he wasn't here for years. I hadn't meant to yell. 'Cause, I said almost whispering, 'cause I want Charlie back. I want my brother. I want him to see me. I want him not to think I was the reason Mama died. I wasn't the reason. Tyree frowned and stopped eating. He's still saying that? I told that boy I'd... No, I lied. He didn't say it anymore, but I know he still thinks it. Look, Lafayette, Tyree rubbed his hand over his head and sighed. You weren't the reason. Mama had. I should have called somebody. I should have tried to get her breathing again. I just sat there calling to her, just sat and waiting for her to wake up, and new Charlie knows it. He knows I got scared and froze up. She was gone before you got there, Lafayette. I don't know what's going to make you hear that it wasn't your fault. Charlie would have known what to do, like that time with that dog that got hit by the car. He found some cardboard and put the dog on it, real careful, 'cause he said the dog might have some broken bones. Then he got me to help him lift the dog over to the sidewalk. He made me call the animal emergency people. I wanted to stay there, but he made me go, told me to run. I looked up at Tyree. By the time I got back, Charlie was holding the dog's head on his lap. The animal emergency people said that was the right thing to do, and then that stupid dog had to go and die anyway. Tyree nodded. Every day Charlie would call the ASPCA to see if the dog was still living, and every night he'd ask Mama if we could adopt it. Mama said no because me and her had allergies, and even if we didn't, our building didn't allow pets. Then one day the ASPCA told Charlie the dog hadn't made it. That's what the guy had said. The dog didn't make it. Like the dog was on its way someplace or meeting somebody for lunch. Didn't make it's a stupid way to say something died. Charlie stayed in our room all afternoon. When he came out that night, Mama asked him how he was feeling. Like nothing, Charlie said. I don't feel like nothing anymore. Now Tyree looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I shrugged and stared down at my plate. Mama had been warm that morning, warm like a person sleeping, warm like that dog was still when we lifted it over the curb. And when the stupid doctor told us Mama didn't make it, I felt like nothing too. Like I could just dry up and disappear. I know I told you this lots of times, Tyree said, and I know other people have said it too, but I'm going to keep saying it because I know you need to keep hearing it. There wasn't anything you could have done, Lafayette. Miss Roberts from down the hall came first, I whispered. I was screaming, and she came and banged on the door. I was still screaming, but I got up to let her in. Tyree didn't say anything, so I went on. She tried to blow in Mama's mouth. She told me to call 911. I was crying. I couldn't go at first. I wanted to stay with Mama. But then you went, Tyree said. I looked up at him. It took them a real long time to come. But you called them and they came, Loth. You called them and they came. Me and Tyree sat there staring at our plates. I wasn't hungry anymore. I wanted to be out of the house, suddenly, away from that day. I wanted to be in the dark theater somewhere far away from our apartment, far away from those men carrying Mama down the stairs while Miss Roberts held me and cried. Can we go to the movies now, T? Tyree nodded. You want to see a blow-up of the world movie? I shook my head. Nah, not really. I don't care if I have to think real hard. No subtitles, though. Can stay home to read. I looked up at Tyree and he smiled. I tried to smile back, but my lips felt quivery. So I got up and took our plates to the kitchen, wrapped foil around mine and put it in the refrigerator for later. Tyree had pretty much finished his. I sat on the couch and tried not to think of anything while Tyree got dressed. The rain was tapping hard against the window, like somebody trying to get my attention, like somebody trying to get inside. All right, when you analyze a character, you're going to use evidence from the text to support your answer. You can tell us what kind of character Lafayette is. So, excuse me. And you want to start out with some concrete things. So Lafayette's a boy about 9 years old. And he is. And you're going to tell me about him. He's dealing with the death of his mother. He's struggling with whether or not he's responsible for it. Is he kind? Is he caring? Is he mean? You're going to give me some evidence from the text for that. All right. We are done with chapter 7. All right, guys. I hope you're doing great. Keep it on track.